I never thought that a simple trail in the forest could turn into my worst nightmare. As I walked along, the dry leaves crackling underfoot, an unsettling feeling began to envelop me. The scent of damp earth and dense foliage seemed to intensify the fear that lodged deep in my stomach. I, a native forest ranger in Colombia, should have felt at home in this environment, but instead, I felt like an intruder. The sound of something rustling behind me made my heart race. Probably just an animal, I tried to convince myself. But my mind screamed that I should turn back. The forest was a mix of beauty and terror. Towering trees draped in moss whispered ancient secrets. Darkness began to creep in, and sunlight was reduced to mere glimpses through the leaves. Every shadow seemed to shift, and the sensation of being watched quickened my pace. The gloom of the forest felt as if it were swallowing me whole, as if I would vanish into its depths forever. I was a man accustomed to the wild, but my friends always warned me about this particular forest. It's not normal, they said. Stay away, yet I was stubborn, as always. In my mind, there was no room for superstitions. There, the echoes of their voices became a bitter reminder of my recklessness. As I ventured deeper into the woods, a chill ran down my spine. Something was off. The trees seemed to close in around me, and the wildlife that typically thrived there had fallen silent. A distant scream pierced the stillness, an agonizing sound that felt hauntingly familiar, yet unrecognizable. What was that? What lurked within the shadows? At that moment, I realized that the forest harbored secrets I should never have uncovered. A deep, icy grip enveloped me, and my survival instincts screamed for me to turn back. But curiosity paralyzed me. What had truly happened to those who entered before me? Was there something worse than the unknown waiting just beyond the next bend? The path twisted and turned, leading me deeper into a realm where the light barely penetrated. My heart raced as I contemplated my choices. Each step felt heavier, as if the forest itself were pulling me into its depths. I could almost hear the whispers of my friends, warning me of the dangers lurking just beyond the fringes of reality. As I pressed on, I stumbled across remnants of old camping gear, a tattered tent, a rusted can, a broken flashlight. The items stirred a sense of dread within me, as if they were relics of a forgotten past, left behind by those who had ventured too far. It was a stark reminder of the thin line between safety and peril. I could feel the air growing heavier, thick with unspoken tension. My senses heightened. Every rustle and snap of a twig became amplified. I took a deep breath, attempting to calm the rising panic, but the weight of the forest pressed down on me like an invisible hand. Suddenly, a figure darted through the trees, so quick that I could barely register it. My pulse quickened, adrenaline coursing through my veins. Just a deer, I told myself. But a part of me knew that this forest held more than mere wildlife. I recalled the stories, the legends surrounding this place. They whispered of spirits of those who had wandered in and never returned. The tales seemed far-fetched back then, but now they crept into my mind, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Panic threatened to consume me, but I forced myself to keep moving. I could not let fear win. Yet, as I navigated the winding path, I felt the forest closing in, the trees bending as if they were alive, watching my every move. With each step, I felt the weight of history pressing down upon me. The ground felt unstable, as if it carried the weight of countless secrets. I knew I should turn back, but there was an undeniable pull drawing me further in, and then I heard it again, a low, mournful sound that sent chills down my spine. It was a voice, barely a whisper, but it echoed through the trees like a haunting melody. "Help me," it pleaded. My heart raced anew. Was it a trick of the mind? Or was someone truly in need? In that moment, everything changed. I was no longer just a ranger. I was a man faced with a choice. My instincts screamed for me to flee, to escape the forest's grasp. Yet, the sound of that voice tugged at my heart, igniting a flicker of hope amidst the dread. What awaited me in the shadows? Would I find help, or would I succumb to the very mysteries that this forest sought to conceal? As I stood frozen on the path, the weight of my decision pressed heavily on my chest. The forest loomed around me, a living entity filled with mysteries and dangers. I had always taken pride in my knowledge of the wilderness, but this place was different. It felt ancient, as if it held memories of those who had come before me. I thought of my friends back in the village, their warnings echoing in my mind. Carlos, the practical one, had always been the voice of reason. "Stay away from that forest, man. You'll regret it," he said, his eyes wide with concern. I dismissed him then, believing my experience would shield me from any danger. But now, in the heart of the forest, I could almost hear his voice, laden with worry. I regretted not listening to him. Maria, my childhood friend, had shared stories of this place, tales of spirits and shadows that danced between the trees. She spoke of disappearances, of people who entered and were never seen again. Her stories had frightened me, but they had also sparked a curiosity that drove me to explore the depths of the unknown. I had always been drawn to adventure, but this was something far more sinister. The forest had a way of distorting reality. Shadows twisted and turned, creating illusions that played tricks on my mind. I could sense the presence of something watching me, lurking just beyond my vision. Every rustle of leaves, every whisper of the wind, heightened my anxiety. The trees seemed to lean closer, their gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. I walked deeper. I came across a clearing, the ground littered with remnants of past visitors. Old photographs, frayed and faded, lay scattered among the underbrush. I picked one up, a snapshot of a group of friends smiling beside a campfire. Their eyes sparkled with joy, completely unaware of the darkness that awaited them. I felt a pang of sadness for them, strangers forever lost to the forest. In the center of the clearing stood a weathered totem, intricately carved with symbols I couldn't decipher. It emanated an unsettling energy, a reminder of the forest's connection to the spiritual world. I ran my fingers over the carvings, feeling the grooves and ridges. It was as if the totem itself was alive, urging me to understand its significance. Suddenly, a chill swept through the air, causing the hairs on my arms to stand on end. I turned sharply, expecting to see something lurking behind me, but the clearing was empty. Yet, the sensation of being watched intensified, pressing down on me like a weight. I needed to leave, but the forest seemed to conspire against me, twisting the paths and obscuring my escape. I thought of the conversations I had with my friends about fear and courage. They often argued that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the determination to move forward despite it. I had always believed that. But now, my courage felt like a fragile fod crumbling under the forest's oppressive presence. I contemplated my next move. I heard it again, the whisper. "Help me." It was closer now, almost pleading. My heart raced as I felt an inexplicable pull toward the sound. The voice felt familiar, as if it belonged to someone I once knew. I was torn between the instinct to run and the desire to uncover the truth behind the voice. The forest transformed around me, colors shifting from vibrant greens to muted grays. The air thickened, and I realized I had crossed a line. This was no ordinary place. It was a threshold to something beyond my understanding. I took a step forward, Compelled by a force I couldn't resist. As I moved, I remembered the local legends that spoke of a guardian spirit, a being who watched over the forest. Some claimed it was benevolent, while others believed it was vengeful, punishing those who dared to disturb the natural order. I wondered if this spirit was the source of the voice, guiding me toward my fate. With each step deeper into the forest, I felt the weight of its history. The trees seemed to whisper secrets, the ground beneath my feet shifting like a living organism. I could almost see the faces of those who had come before me, their expressions a mix of hope and despair. They were trapped in a cycle forever. Wandering the paths of this haunted place, I approached a narrow path that twisted into darkness. The voice grew louder, resonating in my mind. "Help me," it echoed like a siren's call, pulling me closer to the edge of reason. I hesitated, glancing back at the clearing. The remnants of those who had come before me lingered like ghosts, warning me of the dangers that lay ahead. In that moment, I felt a surge of determination. I couldn't turn back now. I had to know what lay ahead, even if it meant confronting the very essence of my fears. The forest had secrets, and I was determined to uncover them. As I stepped onto the path, shadows danced around me, and the air thickened with anticipation. The voice guided me forward, a beacon in the encroaching darkness. I had crossed the threshold, and there was no turning back. The forest awaited, and so did the truth. As I entered the narrow path, the atmosphere shifted, heavy with an unnameable tension. The whispering voice became a constant presence, guiding me deeper into the shadows. Each step felt like a descent into madness, as if the very ground beneath me pulsed with a life of its own. I had to know what lay ahead, but a part of me screamed. To turn back, the trees closed in around me, their trunks snarled and twisted, resembling the faces of lost souls. I felt eyes upon me, their gaze heavy and accusatory. The deeper I went, the more the forest seemed to come alive, as if it resented my intrusion. I could hear the rustle of leaves and the snap of twigs, but they no longer sounded like the benign sounds of nature. They were foreboding, warning me of the danger that lurked in the shadows. Suddenly, the voice shifted. "Help me," it pleaded, now tinged with desperation. It was close, too close. My heart raced as I quickened my pace, driven by a mixture of fear and compassion. Who was calling out? What had happened to them? The thought of leaving someone behind gnawed at me, a moral dilemma that grew more intense with each passing moment. As I turned a corner, I stumbled into a small clearing, my breath hitching in my throat. In the center lay a figure, half hidden beneath the underbrush. It was a woman, her face pale and gaunt, eyes wide with terror. "Please," she gasped, her voice barely above a whisper. "You have to help me." My instincts kicked in, and I rushed to her side. "What happened? How did you get here?" I knelt beside her, scanning the area for any signs of danger. She looked up at me, her expression a mixture of fear and hope. "I was camping with friends. We were separated. I heard something in the woods, and then, I don't know. I got lost." Her voice trembled, and I could see the panic in her eyes. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my racing heart. "We need to get out of here," I urged, glancing around. The shadows felt thicker, more oppressive. "Can you walk?" She nodded, slowly rising to her feet, but her legs trembled beneath her weight. As I helped her stand, a chill ran down my spine. The moment felt wrong, as if the forest disapproved of our presence. I could hear the rustling intensifying, the trees whispering secrets that slipped through my consciousness like smoke. "Let's go," I said, putting an arm around her to steady her. But as we turned to leave, I felt a presence behind us, lurking just out of sight. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end as I glanced over my shoulder. Nothing. Just the dense underbrush. As oppressive as ever, we started to move, but the forest seemed to conspire against us. The path twisted and turned, leading us in. Circles. Each step felt heavier, as if the ground was pulling us back, urging us to stay. Why does it feel like we're going nowhere? I muttered, frustration bubbling within me. The woman looked at me, her eyes wide with fear. It's the forest. It doesn't want us to leave. Her voice trembled, and I could see the panic setting in. Stay close to me, I said, my voice steadying despite the rising dread. I needed to keep her calm, but my own fears threatened to overwhelm me. The shadows seemed to deepen, and the whispers grew louder, almost mocking us. I pressed onward, determined to find an exit. As we walked, I could feel the forest's energy shift, the air thickening with an oppressive weight. Suddenly, the ground beneath us seemed to tremble, and a low growl reverberated through the trees. My heart raced as I turned to the woman. Did you hear that? She nodded, her eyes wide with terror. What is it? Before I could answer, a figure burst from the underbrush, a dark shape moving so quickly that I barely had time to react. It was a man, wild-eyed and disheveled, stumbling into our path. Run, he shouted, his voice raw with panic. It's coming. Without thinking, I grabbed the woman's hand and bolted in the opposite direction. The man fell in step beside us, his breathing ragged. We need to get out of here, he yelled, glancing over his shoulder as if expecting something to emerge. From the shadows, what's after us? I demanded, adrenaline surging through my veins. He shook his head, his eyes wide with terror. I don't know, but it's unnatural. It's not right. The forest seemed to respond to our fear. The shadows growing darker, the trees bending closer as if to trap us. I could hear the growling now, a deep, resonant sound that reverberated through my bones. We ran, branches scratching at our arms and legs, the underbrush tearing at our clothes. Keep moving, I urged, pulling the woman along with me. The path twisted and turned, leading us deeper into the labyrinth of trees. I could feel the malevolence of the forest pressing against us, its very essence suffocating. As we stumbled into another clearing, I caught a glimpse of something lurking in the shadows, a shape, dark and formless, moving with an eerie fluidity. My heart raced, and I pushed forward, desperate to escape. We have to find a way out, I shouted, my voice hoarse with fear. The man beside me stumbled, falling to the ground. I can't do this, he gasped, panic overtaking him. Get up, I shouted, my patience wearing thin. We're not stopping, but the moment stretched, and I could see the darkness closing in around us. The whispers grew, louder, wrapping around me like a shroud. My instincts screamed at me to run, to escape the encroaching horror. With a surge of desperation, I grabbed the woman and pulled her toward the shadows. We need to hide. We ducked behind a massive tree, our breaths coming in ragged gasps. I could hear the growling now, closer, more pronounced. Whatever hunted us was near, and the forest felt alive, a predator waiting to strike. As we huddled behind the massive tree, the growling reverberated through the air, curling around us like smoke. My heart raced, a drumbeat of fear echoing in my chest. The woman, whose name I still didn't know, clutched my arm tightly, her grip a mix of terror and desperation. The man, still on the ground, looked up with wild eyes, his face pale in the dappled light that barely filtered through the canopy. Why did you come here? He gasped, his voice shaky. This forest is cursed. We should never have entered. I shot him a hard look, "What do you mean, cursed? What did you see?" He hesitated, glancing around nervously, as if the very trees were listening. "I was camping with my friends. We thought it would be an adventure, but one by one, they disappeared. I thought I could find them, but—" His voice trailed off, the weight of his words hanging heavy between us. The darkness around us felt like a living thing, eager to swallow our secrets. I turned to the woman, desperate for her perspective. "Did you see anything strange? Any signs of danger?" She shook her head, her eyes wide and fearful. "I didn't think it would be like this. It was supposed to be a fun trip. We were just trying to enjoy nature," she said, her voice trembling. But then it changed. The growling grew louder, and I felt the presence of whatever hunted us drawing closer. I could see movement in the shadows, a shape flickering between the trees. Panic surged within me. "We need to move." Just as I was about to pull them to their feet, the man let out a strangled cry. "No, we can't leave. It will find us." "Stay quiet then," I hissed, my patience wearing thin. The complexity of our situation weighed heavily on me. We were not only fighting for our lives, but also battling the fear that threatened to tear us apart. Dada, as the growling intensified, I felt an urge to understand more about the forest's history. It was a place steeped in mystery and legend, a realm where reality blurred with the supernatural. I recalled the stories Maria had shared, tales of a guardian spirit that could either protect or punish those who dared disturb its domain. The conflict between the natural and the supernatural loomed large in my mind. "Listen," I said, my voice low and steady. "We need to stay together. If this forest is alive, it thrives on fear. We can't let it control us. We have to find a way out and help each other." The man nodded, though his expression was still filled with doubt. The woman, however, seemed to draw strength from my words. "What do we do?" she asked, her voice steadier now. "We need to find a landmark," I suggested, glancing around the clearing. "Something we can use to navigate. Maybe there's a way to signal for help." The man shook his head. "We're too deep. The forest plays tricks on you. You think you're going one way, but it leads you back to where you started." Frustration bubbled within me. I needed to believe that there was a way out, that we weren't trapped in this nightmare forever. "We can't give up. Let's move toward the sound of the growling," I said, feeling a surge of determination. "It might lead us to whatever is causing it." With a nod, I helped the woman to her feet, and we cautiously stepped away from the tree. The growling now sounded like it was coming from a distance, yet its presence lingered, a reminder of the danger that lurked nearby. As we moved, I noticed the forest's atmosphere shifting again. The air felt charged, thick with tension. It was as if the trees were leaning in, listening to our every word. I could sense the weight of their history, the stories they held within their bark. "I've heard stories about people who have been lost here," the woman said, her voice barely above a whisper. "They say the forest takes them, that it feasts on their fears." The man's eyes widened. "That's what happened to my friends. They were scared, and then—" His voice broke, the reality of his situation crashing down on him. I thought I could save them. I turned to him, sensing the complexity of his emotions. He wasn't just afraid for his life. He was haunted by guilt. "You didn't know. We all made choices that led us here. What matters now is how we move forward." As we pressed on, the underbrush thickened, and the growling faded into an eerie silence. We stumbled across a small stream, the water glistening in the fading light. "Maybe we can follow the water," I suggested. "It might lead us to safety." But as we approached the stream, I noticed something unsettling. The water was murky, swirling with an unnatural darkness. It was as if the very essence of the forest had tainted it. Is it safe? The woman asked, hesitating at the waters. Edge, I don't know, I admitted, my voice heavy with uncertainty. But we need to take a chance. We have to keep moving. Reluctantly, we crossed the stream, the cold water soaking our feet. The moment we stepped onto the other side, a loud crack echoed through the trees, sending us into a panic. The growling returned, closer this time, more menacing. What is that? The man shouted, his voice filled with terror. I turned, scanning the shadows for any sign of movement. The fear gnawed at me, a reminder of the stories I had heard. Whatever it is, we need to face it together. As the darkness descended, I felt the weight of our collective fears pressing down on us. Each of us was battling our own demons, the complexities of our pasts intertwining with the present danger. The forest was not just a physical challenge. It was a manifestation of our deepest fears and regrets. The growling intensified, merging with the whispers of the forest. It was a cacophony of sound that threatened to drown us in despair. But in that moment of chaos, I realized that we had something powerful, each other. We could confront whatever hunted us, not as individuals lost in despair, but as a united front, a trio bound by shared fear and determination. Stay close, I urged, gripping their hands tightly. We face this together. The growling erupted into a furious roar, shaking the very ground beneath our feet. I felt the vibrations travel through my body, a visceral reminder that whatever hunted us was closing in. My heart raced as we stumbled backward, adrenaline coursing through my veins. There was no escaping the reality that we were in grave danger. Run, I shouted, adrenaline fueling my voice. The shadows around us thickened, as if the forest itself conspired to trap us. We turned and sprinted, the underbrush clawing at our legs as we raced through the trees. Panic surged within me, but I fought to maintain focus. We needed a plan, a way to confront whatever was pursuing us. The growling intensified, reverberating through the trees, yet I could not bring myself to look back. I could feel the presence behind us, a predator stalking its prey, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The fear in the woman's eyes mirrored my own, but the man beside us seemed to have lost all hope. Stop. We can't keep running like this, he gasped, his breath coming in ragged bursts. It'll catch us eventually. No, I shouted, my voice breaking the tension. We can't give up. We have to find a way to fight back. In that moment, a flicker of determination ignited within me. I couldn't let fear dictate our fate, not now. We stumbled into a small clearing, the trees parting to reveal a patch of moonlight that bathed the ground in silver. I skidded to a halt, turning to face my companions. We need to regroup, I said, trying to catch my breath. If we can't run, we have to think. What do you propose? The woman asked, her eyes darting around, searching for the source of the growling. We find something to defend ourselves with, I replied, glancing around the clearing. Anything that can give us an edge. The man nodded, his panic momentarily subsiding. There, he shouted, pointing to a fallen branch that lay nearby. It was thick and sturdy, perfect for a makeshift weapon. Good eye, I said, rushing over to grab the branch. I swung it experimentally, feeling its weight in my hands. It was reassuring, a tangible reminder that we could fight back. We'll need to work together. If we face it as a unit, we stand a chance. The growling echoed again, closer this time, and I felt a surge of urgency. I turned back to the clearing, my heart pounding in my chest. Whatever it is, it's coming. We need to be ready. The woman picked up a smaller branch, her hands trembling but her resolve strengthening. The man grabbed another piece of debris, and together we formed a line, our makeshift weapons held tightly in our grips. As the growling grew louder, the shadows coalesced into a dark figure, emerging from the trees. It was massive, its form shifting between corporeal and ethereal, as if it were made of pure darkness. Its eyes glinted like shards of glass, reflecting the faint light as it approached. "Face it," I shouted, raising my branch high. "We can't let fear control us." The creature paused, its growl deepening into a roar that echoed through the clearing. I could feel the ground vibrating beneath us, the air thick with tension. The whispers of the forest intensified, swirling around us in a cacophony of sound, heightening my sense of dread and urgency. "Together," I urged, my voice cutting through the chaos. "On my count, we strike." The creature lunged forward, and instinct kicked in. 1, 2, 3. We swung our branches in unison, aiming for the creature's head. Our strikes connected, but it felt as though we were hitting smoke. The creature reeled back, but instead of retreating, it let out an ear-splitting screech that resonated through the forest. "Keep going," I shouted, my heart pounding furiously. "Don't stop." The creature lunged again, and this time I saw it more clearly. It was a mass of darkness, with tendrils that writhed and twisted as if alive. In its eyes, I saw a flicker of something. Fear? Anger? I couldn't tell, but I knew we were facing more than just a physical threat. We were confronting the embodiment of our fears. "Focus," I yelled, channeling my adrenaline into each swing. "We're not just fighting it. We're fighting for our lives." The woman's face hardened with determination as she swung her branch with newfound strength. The man followed suit, his fear transforming into a fierce resolve. We were no longer just individuals lost in despair. We were a team, united against a common enemy. With each strike, I felt a shift in the atmosphere. The creature faltered, its growls turning to snarls, as if it were sensing our collective strength. "It's weakening," I shouted, urging them on. "Keep pushing." We pressed forward, relentless in our assault. The creature writhed and twisted, its form flickering in and out of existence. The whispers of the forest grew louder, a chorus, urging us on, wrapping around us like a protective barrier. Then, in a moment of clarity, I realized that this creature was not just a foe. It was a manifestation of our fears and regrets. It thrived on our anxieties, feeding off the darkness we carried within us. In that instant, I understood that we could not simply fight it. We had to confront it, to face our own shadows. "Stop," I yelled, raising my branch once more. "We need to confront it not just with force, but with understanding." "What do you mean?" The woman shouted, confusion mingled with fear. "We have to acknowledge our fears," I replied, my voice firm. "This creature is a part of us. We can't fight it without recognizing what it represents." With a deep breath, I stepped forward, lowering my weapon. "I am afraid of failing," I declared, my voice steady. "I fear that I won't be able to protect those I care about." The creature paused, its growling faltering. I could see a flicker of uncertainty in its eyes, a crack in its dark facade. "Now it's your turn," I urged, turning to the woman. "Face your fears." Trembling but resolute, she stepped forward. "I fear the unknown," she confessed, her voice shaking. "I'm afraid of losing control." The creature recoiled, its form shifting as if it were absorbing her words. "You too." I called to the man. "What do you fear?" "I fear that I'm not enough," he admitted, his voice cracking. "I fear that I let my friends down." With each confession, the creature diminished, its growls fading into whimpers. The whispers of the forest swirled around us, a symphony of acceptance and understanding. It was as if the very essence of the woods was urging us on, guiding us to confront our deepest fears. As we stood together, united in our vulnerability, the creature shrank further, its form flickering like a dying flame. "We are not alone," I said, my voice filled with conviction. "We are stronger together." In a final surge of energy, I raised my branch one last time, not in anger, but in solidarity. Together, we struck the creature, our blows not meant to destroy but to release. With a final, mournful cry, the creature dissolved into the shadows, leaving behind only a faint echo of what once was. The whispers of the forest transformed into a gentle breeze, wrapping around us like a warm embrace. We stood there, breathless and trembling, the weight of our fears lifted. The forest felt different now, lighter, as if it had released its grip on us. Did we do it?" the woman asked, her voice filled with disbelief. I nodded, a smile breaking across my face. "We faced our fears, and together, we overcame them." In that moment, I felt a profound sense of relief wash over me. We were no longer just survivors. We were transformed by the experience. United in our vulnerability, we had emerged stronger, ready to face whatever lay ahead. As the last echoes of the creature faded into the night, a profound silence enveloped the clearing. The oppressive weight that had hung over us lifted, replaced by a palpable sense of relief. I glanced at the woman and the man, their faces reflecting a mixture of disbelief and newfound strength. "We did it," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. It felt surreal, as if we had emerged from a nightmare into a fragile dawn. The forest, once a place of fear, now seemed to shimmer with possibility, but the victory was bittersweet. As the adrenaline subsided, the reality of our situation set in. We were still deep within the forest, and the shadows still loomed. "We need to figure out how to get out of here," I reminded them, the urgency of our predicament returning. The woman nodded, her expression shifting from elation to concern. "But how? The paths are twisted, and I have no idea where we are." The man, still catching his breath, looked around with a furrowed brow. "We have to find a landmark or some sign that can guide us back," he suggested, his voice steadier now. I agreed. "Let's head toward the stream again. Water usually leads to larger bodies, and we might find a way out." The idea of retracing our steps felt daunting, but we had faced our fears together and emerged stronger. Now, we needed to rely on that strength to navigate the unknown. As we walked, I couldn't shake the feeling of transformation that had occurred within us. Each of us had confronted our personal demons, and somehow that had forged a bond between us. The woman, whose name I still didn't know, walked with a newfound confidence, her posture straighter, her eyes scanning the surroundings with purpose. "What's your name?" I asked, breaking the silence. "Lena," she replied, offering a small smile. "Thank you for everything, of course," I said, returning her smile. "We all played a part in this." The man introduced himself as Javier, and as we walked, we shared our stories. Each confession felt like another. Weight lifted, a step closer to understanding the complexities that had brought us to this moment. Lena spoke of her life back in the city, her struggles to find meaning in a fast-paced world. I thought getting away would help me clear my mind, but I never expected to face something like this. She admitted Javier shared his own burdens, the pressure to succeed, the guilt of not being there for his friends when they needed him most. I always thought I could handle anything, but this forest, it showed me how vulnerable I really am. He confessed, his voice heavy with emotion. I shared my own journey, the weight of responsibility I carried as a ranger, and the fear of failing those who depended on me. It was cathartic to voice my worries, to connect with others who understood the weight of those burdens. As we reached the stream, its gentle gurgle felt like a balm to my frayed nerves. The water, once murky and foreboding, now sparkled in the light of the moon. I knelt by the bank, splashing my face with cool water, feeling rejuvenated. "Let's follow the stream," I suggested, the sound of flowing water invigorating our spirits. We moved alongside the bank, the path becoming clearer as we progressed. With each step, I felt the bond between us deepen. We were no longer just survivors of a terrifying ordeal. We were allies, each of us carrying the scars of our experiences, but also the strength of our shared triumph. As we walked, however, I noticed something unsettling. The forest still held an eerie quality. The trees seemed to watch us, their twisted branches reaching out like fingers. The shadows danced around us, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were still being tested. "Do you think it's really over?" Lena asked, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "What if something else is waiting for us?" I paused, the weight of her words sinking in. "I think we've faced the worst of it," I replied, though doubt flickered in my mind. "But we have to remain vigilant. The forest may still hold its secrets." Javier nodded, his expression serious. "We can't let our guard down. We've come too far to be caught off guard again." The tension in the air was palpable, a reminder of the darkness we had just escaped. We pressed on, our steps quickening as we navigated the winding path beside the stream. The forest felt alive, shifting and changing as we moved, and I couldn't shake the feeling that we were still being watched. After what felt like hours, we stumbled upon a familiar sight, a clearing that seemed to hold the remnants of a campsite. Old rusted cans and remnants of a fire pit lay scattered around, a haunting reminder of those who had come before us. "This looks like the place where we started," Lena said, her voice softening. "But where do we go from here?" I scanned the area, searching for any sign of a way out. "If we can find our bearings, we might be able to retrace our steps back to the trailhead," I suggested, but as we examined the campsite, a sense of dread washed over me. "What if we're just going in circles?" Javier asked, his voice tinged with frustration. "We won't know until we try," I replied, trying to keep my own fears at bay. "Let's split up and see if we can find any signs of the main path." Reluctantly, we agreed. I ventured to the left, while Lena and Javier moved toward the right. As I walked, the stillness of the forest enveloped me. I could hear the distant rustling of leaves and the chirping of insects, but beneath it all was a sense of foreboding. After a few minutes of searching, I found myself standing before a weathered tree, its trunk etched with strange symbols. The markings seemed familiar, and I felt a sense of déjà vu. "What are you?" I murmured, tracing the symbols with my fingers. Suddenly, I heard a commotion behind me. I turned to see Lena and Javier rushing toward me, their faces pale. "What happened?" I asked, alarmed. "We heard something," Lena gasped, her breath coming in quick bursts. A rustling, something moving in the bushes. My heart sank. "We need to stick together," I said firmly. "No more splitting up." As we regrouped, the shadows around us deepened, and the whispers returned, swirling like an ominous fog. The forest seemed to pulse with a life of its own, and I felt a chill creep down my spine. "We need to find a way out, and fast," I urged, looking at both of them. "Trust your instincts and stay close." We moved cautiously, retracing our steps as the tension thickened. Whatever had lurked in the shadows was still out there, watching, waiting. The sense of danger heightened with each step, and I felt the weight of our previous encounter looming over us. But as we pressed on, something shifted within me. I could feel the strength of our bond, the resilience we had forged through our shared experience. We were no longer just three individuals lost in a dark forest. We were a team, united against the unknown. Suddenly, a path opened up before us, bathed in moonlight. "Look!" Javier exclaimed, pointing toward the faint outline of a trail. Hope surged within me. That has to lead us out. With renewed determination, we moved toward the path, the shadows retreating as we stepped into the light. The forest felt less suffocating, as if it recognized our strength. As we walked, I couldn't help but reflect on the journey we had undertaken. The forest had tested us, forced us to confront our fears, and in doing so, it had forged an unbreakable bond between us. We were survivors, transformed not just by our ordeal, but by the connections we had made along the way, whatever happens. "Next, we face it together," I said, glancing at Lena and Javier, their faces lit with determination. Together, they echoed, their voices resolute, and as we stepped forward into the unknown, I knew that no matter what lay ahead, we would face it united, unyielding, and forever changed. As we stepped onto the path, the moonlight bathed us in a silvery glow, illuminating the way forward. The shadows that once loomed so ominously now felt more like distant memories, remnants of a battle fought and won. I could hear the rustling of leaves overhead and the distant calls of night creatures, sounds that had once filled me with dread, but now seemed like a symphony of life. "Can you believe we made it through that?" Lena said, her voice filled with awe and disbelief. Her eyes sparkled with a mixture of relief and wonder. "We did more than just survive," I replied, feeling a swell of pride. "We faced our fears. Each of us confronted something deep inside, something that could have consumed us." Javier, walking slightly behind us, nodded in agreement. "I've never felt anything like it. I thought I would crumble, but instead, I found strength I didn't know I had." His voice was steady now, the tremor of fear replaced by a newfound confidence. As we continued along the path, I reflected on the transformation we had undergone. Each of us had entered the forest carrying our own burdens: fear, guilt, insecurity, but together, we had unburdened ourselves. The act of confronting our fears had not only liberated us from the darkness of the forest, but also from the shadows within ourselves. "Do you think we'll be different when we get out?" Lena asked, her tone contemplative. I feel like I've changed already." "Absolutely," I replied, my heart swelling with conviction. "We've seen what we're capable of. The forest might have been a nightmare, but it forced us to grow in ways we never anticipated." The conversation sparked a sense of camaraderie between us, a bond forged in the fires of adversity. As we navigated the winding trail, I thought about how we would carry this experience with us long after we left the forest. The lessons learned here would shape our futures, guiding us through whatever challenges lay ahead. Suddenly, a sound broke through my thoughts, a crack of a branch, followed by a low growl. My heart raced, and instinctively, I turned to face the sound. "Did you hear that?" I whispered, gripping my branch tightly. Lena and Javier froze, their expressions shifting from relief to apprehension. "What if it's not over?" Lena said, her voice barely above a whisper. "We need to stay alert," I replied, scanning the surrounding trees. "But remember what we've learned. We faced our fears and emerged stronger. Whatever it is, we can handle it." As we stood together, the shadows around us felt less threatening. We had come this far, and the bond we had created in the face of adversity gave me hope. "Let's keep moving," I urged, stepping cautiously forward. The weight of the moment heavy upon us, the path narrowed, and the trees loomed closer, their branches forming a canopy overhead. The air felt charged, alive with anticipation. I could sense that the forest was still alive, still testing us, but now we were ready to confront whatever lay ahead. As we walked, I felt a shift within myself, an understanding that the fears I had carried were not insurmountable. The forest had stripped away my illusions of control and safety, forcing me to face the reality of vulnerability. It was a lesson I would carry with me, a reminder that growth often comes from discomfort. After what felt like an eternity, we finally emerged from the dense woods into a clearing. The sight before us was breathtaking, a vast expanse of open land illuminated by the moonlight, with the stars twinkling above like distant beacons of hope. It was a stark contrast to the oppressive darkness of the forest. "Look at that," Lena breathed, her eyes wide with wonder. "It's beautiful." "It is," I agreed, feeling a sense of freedom wash over me. We had made it through the darkness, and now we stood on the precipice of a new beginning. As we took in the sights, I felt a wave of emotion wash over me. The journey had been harrowing, but it had also been transformative. We were no longer just three individuals lost in the woods. We were a team, bound by our experiences, our fears, and our triumphs. Javier broke the silence. "So, what now? What happens when we leave this place?" I turned to him, feeling the weight of the question. "We take what we've learned and apply it to our lives outside the forest. We remember that fear doesn't define us. It's how we respond to that fear that shapes who we are." Lena nodded, her eyes glistening with emotion. "I want to carry this strength with me. I don't want to forget what I've learned here." "You won't," I assured her. "This experience has changed us. It's a part of us now, no matter where we go." With newfound determination, we began to walk toward the edge of the clearing, where the trees thinned out, revealing a path that led away from the forest. Each step felt lighter, as if the burdens we had carried were slowly being shed. The path before us was illuminated by the moonlight, guiding us toward safety. I could feel the warmth of hope blossoming within me, a stark contrast to the cold fear that had once gripped my heart. As we walked, we talked about our lives outside the forest. Lena shared her aspirations of becoming a nature photographer, capturing the beauty of the world through her lens. "I want to show people the magic in the mundane, to remind them of the beauty that exists even when they don't see it," she said passionately. Javier spoke of his desire to pursue a career in environmental conservation, driven by the need to protect places like the forest we had just navigated. "I want to ensure that future generations can experience the wonder of nature, just like we did," he said, his eyes shining with purpose. Listening to them, I felt a swell of pride. We had not only survived, but had emerged with clarity about our paths. The forest had tested our limits, but had ultimately revealed our strengths and passions. As we neared the edge of the clearing, I could see the outline of the forest's edge in the distance. It felt like a threshold, a boundary between the darkness we had faced and the light of a new beginning. "Are we ready?" I asked, glancing at my companions. They both nodded, determination etched on their faces. "Together," Lena said, her voice steady. "Together," Javier echoed. With hearts full of resolve, we stepped forward, leaving the darkness of the forest behind us. The air felt lighter, infused with the promise of new beginnings. We had confronted our fears, faced the shadows of our pasts, and emerged stronger. As we walked into the unknown, I knew that whatever lay ahead, we would face it united, drawing strength from our shared experience. The journey through the forest had been harrowing, but it had also been a catalyst for growth, a transformative experience that would shape our futures. In that moment, I understood that overcoming fear was not just about survival. It was about embracing vulnerability, finding strength in connection, and allowing growth to flourish in the face of adversity. And as we stepped into the light, I felt a profound sense of gratitude for the journey we had taken together. We were no longer just survivors. We were warriors of the heart, ready to embrace the next chapter of our lives. As we stepped away from the oppressive shadows of the forest, a sense of urgency settled over us. The moon hung high in the sky, illuminating the path ahead. Despite the relief of escaping the darkness, I could feel the tension in the air, a palpable reminder that our journey was far from over. The experience had transformed us, yet the looming climax of our adventure felt inevitable. Where do we go from here? Lena asked, her voice steady but laced with anticipation. We had emerged from the forest, but the feeling that something was still waiting for us lingered like a storm cloud on the horizon. We need to find shelter and regroup, I replied, scanning our surroundings. We can't let our guard down just yet. Whatever we faced in the forest might not be finished with us. Javier nodded, his expression serious. I agree. We need to be ready for anything. The open land before us was both beautiful and daunting. The grass swayed gently in the breeze, and the stars twinkled overhead, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the forest still had a grip on us. It was a place of mystery and danger, and I knew we had to prepare for the challenges that lay ahead. We should head toward that ridge, I suggested, pointing to a line of hills in the distance. It looks like it could offer some protection and a good vantage point. We can assess our situation and plan our next move from there. Good idea, Lena replied, her eyes narrowing in determination. Let's move quickly, but quietly. We don't know what's out here. With that, we set off toward the ridge, our footsteps falling softly on the grass. The night was eerily quiet, the sounds of the forest replaced by an unsettling stillness. I could feel the weight of our shared experiences pressing down on us, a reminder of what we had overcome. But as we walked, the thought of something lurking in the darkness gnawed at my mind. Do you think we really saw the last of that creature? Javier asked, breaking the silence. I hesitated, my thoughts racing. I don't know. We faced something primal in that forest, something that feeds on fear and despair. It's possible it could return, especially if its senses were vulnerable. Lena shivered at my words. What do we do if it comes back? I don't want to face that again. We prepare, I said firmly. We'll gather our strength, share what we've learned, and stand together. If it does come back, we'll be ready. As we neared the ridge, I could see a small outcropping of rocks that would provide shelter. Let's take cover there, I suggested. We can rest and strategize. The three of us climbed up to the rocky ledge, the cool stone beneath our hands grounding me in the moment. Once we settled, I took a deep breath, gathering my thoughts. We need to focus on what we learned in the forest. We faced our fears, and that gave us strength. Now we need to turn that strength into a plan. Lena looked at me, her eyes glinting with determination. What do you think we should do first? I considered her question. First, we need to establish a safe perimeter. If the creature returns, we'll need to know how to defend ourselves. We should gather anything we can use as weapons or tools. Javier nodded, his brow furrowing in thought. I saw some fallen branches back near the clearing. They could make good weapons if we can find them again. Great idea, I said, feeling a sense of purpose. Lena, can you scout the area for anything useful? Look for rocks or anything that could serve as a projectile. Got it, she replied, her resolve evident. I'll be quick. As Lena moved away, I turned to Javier. What do you think we should do if we encounter the creature again? We need to stay united, he said. If we face it together, We can draw on each other's strengths, but we also have to be ready to adapt. If it attacks, we need to think on our feet. Exactly, I agreed. We have to trust each other and remain calm. Panic can lead to mistakes. The weight of our conversation hung in the air, the reality of our situation settling in. We had survived the forest, but the prospect of facing the creature again loomed over us like a storm cloud. Lena returned a short while later, her arms filled with sticks and stones. I found some good branches and a few sharp rocks. I think we can make this work, she said, her voice filled with energy. Perfect, I exclaimed. Let's fashion some weapons. We can sharpen the rocks and use the branches for defense. Together, we can create a solid line of defense. As we worked, the act of preparing felt empowering. Each sharpened rock and reinforced branch was a symbol of our resilience. We were no longer just victims of circumstance. We were warriors, ready to face whatever came our way. While we're preparing, let's talk about our fears again, I suggested, feeling it was important to reinforce our bond. What we faced in the forest was a manifestation of our deepest anxieties. Acknowledging them gave us strength. I fear losing control, Lena admitted, her voice steady. The forest showed me how quickly everything can change. I want to be able to navigate uncertainty. That's a powerful insight, I replied, feeling a sense of admiration for her honesty. Embracing uncertainty is a crucial part of growth, Javier chimed in. For me, it's about feeling inadequate. I often feel like I'm not enough for the people who depend on me. But facing that fear in the forest made me realize that it's okay to be vulnerable. Exactly, I said, feeling more connected to them with each passing moment. We've learned that vulnerability can be a source of strength. We're not alone in this. As we finalized our preparations, I could feel the tension building within me. The calm before the storm was palpable, and I knew that we were on the precipice of something monumental. Let's take a moment to breathe before we move out, I suggested, closing my eyes and focusing on my breath. I felt the cool night air fill my lungs, grounding me in the present. Lena and Javier joined me, and for a moment, we simply existed in the quiet, breathing in unison. It was a moment of peace amidst the chaos, a reminder of our shared strength. When we opened our eyes, I could see the determination reflected in their faces. Are we ready? I asked, my voice steady. We're ready, Lena said, her eyes shining with resolve. Javier nodded, his expression fierce. Together, with that, we gathered our makeshift weapons, our hearts and minds focused on the challenges ahead. The ridge provided a sense of safety, but as we prepared to descend, I felt the weight of the unknown bearing down on us. Whatever happens next, remember what we learned in the forest, I reminded them. We are stronger together. Confront your fears, and let's face this head-on. As we descended the ridge, we moved with purpose, ready to confront whatever awaited us. The climax of our journey was approaching, and in that moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of hope. We had faced darkness and emerged stronger. Now we would step into the light, ready to conquer the next challenge together. The air was thick with tension as we descended the ridge. Each step felt heavier, as if the weight of our shared experience pressed down on us, propelling us toward an inevitable confrontation. The moon hung high in the sky, illuminating our path, but the shadows of the forest loomed close, whispering reminders of the fears we had faced and the creature that had haunted us. Stay alert, I whispered, my voice barely audible. The night was eerily quiet, the kind of silence that felt like a prelude to something monumental. We moved cautiously, our makeshift weapons gripped tightly in our hands, hearts racing as we approached the edge of the forest. As we reached the tree line, A low growl echoed from within the shadows. The sound reverberated through the air, sending chills down my spine. I exchanged a glance with Lena and Javier. Fear and determination mingled in their eyes. We were ready, but the unknown still loomed ahead. "Remember our plan," I reminded them, my voice steady. "We face it together." With that, we stepped into the darkness, the trees closing in around us. The forest felt alive, the shadows dancing as if taunting us. The growl came again, louder this time, reverberating through the trees. I could feel the creature's presence, a primal force that thrived on our fears. Suddenly, it emerged from the darkness, a massive shape, a swirling mass of shadows and claws, its eyes glowing like embers in the night. The creature was more terrifying than I had remembered, a nightmare brought to life. My heart raced as the growl morphed into a bone-chilling roar. "Stay together," I shouted, raising my branch. "We can't let it divide us." The creature lunged forward, and instinct kicked in. We sprang into action, moving as one cohesive unit. Lena swung her branch with fierce determination, while Javier hurled a sharp rock, striking the creature's side. Our combined efforts caught it off guard, but it retaliated with a snarl. Its claws slashing through the air, I felt a surge of adrenaline as I closed the distance, aiming for the creature's head. Our movements flowed together, each strike a testament to the strength we had gained from our shared experience. "Keep pushing," I shouted, my voice rising above the chaos. "It can be defeated." The creature growled, a sound that reverberated through the trees, but there was a flicker of uncertainty in its eyes. It was responding to our bravery, and I felt a surge of hope. "Remember what we learned," I yelled. "Face your fears." Lena stepped forward, her voice strong. "I am not afraid of you. You don't control me." Her defiance resonated. In the air, a powerful declaration that echoed through the clearing. Javier joined her, his voice steady. "We've faced you before, and we will do it again. You are not our master." The creature hesitated, its growl faltering for a moment, and I seized the opportunity. "Now, together," I shouted, raising my branch high. We swung in unison, our strikes fueled by the strength of our collective spirit. The impact reverberated through the night, and the creature shrieked, a sound that felt like a shattering glass. It staggered back, its form flickering as if it were struggling to maintain its shape. We pressed forward, refusing to back down. I could see the fear in its eyes, a reflection of our own vulnerabilities. "You are a part of us," I declared, my voice firm. "We acknowledge you, but you will not define us." With each strike, I felt the darkness around us dissipate. The shadows that had once threatened to engulf us were now retreating, unraveling under the weight of our determination. We were reclaiming our power, confronting the embodiment of our fears head-on. The creature howled, a sound filled with fury and despair, and I felt a pang of empathy. It was a manifestation of the fears we had carried for so long, a reminder of our vulnerabilities. But we had learned to confront those fears, to embrace them rather than let them consume us. "Lena, keep going," I urged, watching as she swung her branch with newfound ferocity. "We're almost there." Javier charged forward, his rock striking the creature again, and I could see the darkness beginning to unravel at the edges. "It's weakening," he shouted, his voice filled with fervor. We pressed on, our strikes unrelenting. The creature's form flickered like a dying flame, and I felt the surge of hope within me. We could do this. We had the strength to overcome the darkness. Together, I shouted, rallying us for one final push. "Let's finish this." As we swung our weapons in unison, a blinding light erupted from the heart of the creature. It screeched, a sound that reverberated through the night, shaking the very ground beneath our feet. The shadows that had once enveloped us began to dissolve, leaving behind a shimmering light that wrapped around us like a protective veil. In that moment, I felt a shift within myself, a realization that our fears would always be a part of us, but they no longer had power over us. We had faced them, acknowledged them, and emerged stronger. As the light enveloped us, the creature let out one final, anguished roar before it disintegrated into a cascade of shimmering dust. The shadows that had once threatened to consume us faded away, leaving only a serene calm in their wake. We stood together in the clearing, breathless and trembling, our hearts racing from the adrenaline of the battle. The weight of the darkness had been lifted, replaced by a profound sense of relief and triumph. We did it. Lena breathed, her eyes wide with disbelief and joy. Together, Javier added, a smile breaking across his face. I looked at my companions, feeling a swell of pride. We faced our fears and emerged victorious. This is just the beginning of our journey, as the first rays of dawn broke over the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink. I felt a renewed sense of purpose. The forest had tested us, but it had also taught us invaluable lessons about strength, vulnerability, and the power of connection. We had confronted the darkness together, and in doing so, we had forged an unbreakable bond. The journey ahead would still hold challenges, but now we were armed with the knowledge that we could face anything as long as we stood together. Let's move forward, I said, my voice steady with resolve. Whatever comes next, we'll face it united. With that, we took our first steps into the light of a new day, leaving the shadows behind us. We were no longer just survivors of a harrowing ordeal. We were warriors, transformed by our experiences and ready to embrace the future. The sun rose higher in the sky, casting warm golden rays over the landscape. We felt a profound sense of transformation. The events of the past few days had shaped us in ways we could hardly articulate. We stood together at the edge of the forest, where shadows once loomed large, now replaced by the vibrant colors of dawn. It was a fitting metaphor for our journey emerging. From darkness into light, from fear into strength, reflecting on our experience, I realized that the forest had not only tested our limits, but had also revealed the depths of our character. Each of us had entered the woods carrying personal burdens, fears, insecurities, and doubts, but facing the creature had forced us to confront those demons head-on. The battle had been fierce, yet it was in that struggle that we discovered our true selves. Lena had channeled her fear of inadequacy into a fierce determination, finding her voice amidst the chaos. Javier had transformed his feelings of vulnerability into an empowering sense of purpose, recognizing the strength that lay in unity. And I had learned that leadership is not just about being strong. It is about vulnerability, connection, and the courage to face uncertainty together. As we moved away from the forest, I felt a sense of gratitude for what we had experienced. The creature, once a source of terror, had become a symbol of our growth. It represented the fears we would continue to face in life, but now we understood that those fears could be confronted and overcome. Our journey had taught us invaluable lessons about resilience and the importance of community. We had each emerged with a renewed sense of purpose, ready to take on whatever challenges lay ahead. The bond we forged in the forest had become a cornerstone of our lives, a reminder that we were never truly alone in our struggles. Looking ahead, I felt optimistic about our futures. We were no longer just three individuals navigating life's uncertainties. We were a team, equipped with the knowledge that we could face adversity together. The world outside the forest was vast and full of possibilities, and we were ready to explore it with open hearts and unwavering determination. We took our first steps into this new chapter. I realized that the true essence of our journey was not merely about survival. It was about growth, understanding, and the transformative power of facing our fears. We had come full circle, and as we moved forward, we carried with us the lessons learned in the depths of the forest. In that moment, I understood that every challenge we face is an opportunity for growth. As we left the shadows behind, we embraced the light, ready to embark on the next adventure life had in store for us. Months later, we found ourselves gathered at a small cafe, reminiscing about our harrowing journey. The bond we had formed in the forest remained unbreakable, serving as a reminder of our strength and resilience. Each of us had pursued our passions. Lena had begun her photography career, capturing the beauty of nature, while Javier worked tirelessly in conservation efforts. I had continued my role as a ranger, now with a deeper understanding of the importance of community and support. Our experiences had shaped our paths, and we were excited to see where our newfound strength would lead us next. Are you ready to confront your own fears and embark on a journey of growth? Join us in discovering the transformative power of facing challenges head-on. Whether you're navigating personal struggles or seeking to support others, remember that vulnerability is a strength. Share your story, connect with like-minded individuals, and be part of a community that uplifts and empowers. Embrace the unknown, step outside your comfort zone, and take the first step toward a brighter future. Together, we can face the darkness and emerge victorious, ready to embrace life's adventures with courage and resilience.